Well, I guess this is my theme for today, but after praying that prayer and giving the last two videos, I did have the return of rest in my spirit that's eluded me for a week. And see, I've known and said numerous times that what the build up to the Lord's coming will be a season of refreshing for the church, and we will know the hour not by calculation, but because the day star rises in our heart. Remember, Peter said, "You have a more sure word of prophecy, which you do well to heed." Which you do well to heed as a light that shines in the darkness until the day star or the morning star rises in your heart. What is the indicator that the Lord's presence his coming is right here? Number one, we have all the coalescence of signs, true. And number two, we have an inward witness that is supposed to go brighter until the perfect day. And I believe that the fruit of the Spirit and the joy and the peace we have as we abide in Him, if you're in that position of abiding in the Lord, your realization of grace is going to become more and more profound. And you're going to step right into His presence. It's going to be something. And I've had dreams about that in the past, or one dream that we knew the very day, and it wasn't because of a calculation, it was because we were in the light. And walking in the light, you have to be guarding the right thing. Christ is in your spirit and wants to make His home in your heart, and wants you resting in Him by holding on to your treasure, which is the gospel of grace. The real thing that has been contended for among the watchmen in these last few months is the grace. Everything else is chaff. The date setting is chaff. And that is not profitable at all. And now here, I'll say this too. If you have the same response to seeing people discouraged by date setters as you do for people being discouraged because they think they're under the law and are under condemnation, you're on the right track. I've seen people on my wall tell me that they want to commit suicide, and the only thing keeping them from doing it is that they're hoping the Lord comes first, and they've got these dates, and now when the date passes, they want to. It's real. That is so heavy to me, and it shows that. See, the YouTube community has a lot of people that they've not been nourished with the words of grace and faith to where they really know how to fellowship with the Lord and rest in Him. All of us are learning that. None of us are very good at it, to be honest. But some, they woke up to watchfulness in 2014 or whenever everybody did, and they've been watching, but the people that they've been watching and that have been telling them to watch have been watching in a way that they keep setting dates and not nourishing them with the food. Or if they do nourish them with the food, that is not the real focus of their ministry. And now the world, somebody had a dream a couple weeks ago that the Lord said He was going to increase the pressure. And the pressure in the world is getting harder. You can feel it. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why I'm not booking as many weddings. I think people are stressed, There's a temperature in the air, and you have to have your armor on and be in the Lord, waiting on Him. And that pressure is ratcheting it up. So there's two kinds of offense that I see coming. There's the ones that think the Lord is a hard master. They're saved, but they thought He was a hard master, and they've got a legalistic view, tainting their Christian life and stealing their joy. And there's the ones who are offended because they think the Lord is delaying his coming. Someone shared on my wall that 2 Peter 3:9 verse. The Lord is not slack, as some count slowness, but is long-suffering towards all, not willing that any would perish, but all would come to repentance, to the knowledge of the truth. We know that's not going to happen. He's not going to get that. But he's doing his best to be patient. You think you're patient. Watch how the Lord has been patient for 2,000 years. He knows what he's going to receive. He knows what's waiting. He knows the good things that are ahead. And yet he's patient. And anyway, the enemy is using this to steal people's joy. And for a while I thought, no, the people have a good intention. They're just misguided. They don't mean well. And while I did that, I actually was leaving the door open a crack to be influenced. And I lost my joy and felt very frustrated. There was a brother who repented. His whole channel was about date setting, and he set dates. He repented and said, I'm not going to set dates anymore. I've seen that that's wrong. And yet he's keeping his YouTube channel. I guess we'll see what his focus turns to. That's really what needs to happen. And I'm saying this in love because I am subscribed to a couple channels and appreciate what I believe is the right, good intention. But when I see people on my wall and other walls saying they're going to commit suicide, I can see that makes me angry. The same way it makes me angry to see people who are struggling with assurance because of false teaching regarding legalism. Both of them have an extremely damaging effect on people's relationship with the Lord. All you have to do is stop setting dates. You can still tell us the news updates and say, wow, this happened and I had a dream. But you cannot, and you're not being honest if you say, well, I'm not setting a date, but the Lord showed me a calendar that said May 14th. I just don't believe that the Lord is giving people a date and then taking that date back and saying, actually, I was lying. I was pointing to something else. Usually, when I get a dream, I've only had a couple dreams of the Lord, but I get a pretty clear interpretation. I'm not left to my own devices to just, I don't know what that dream meant. The Lord does not communicate in a way that you can't understand him. He'll give you the interpretation. And people are trying to collate their dreams to try to put together and figure out. The Lord is not making that hard of a puzzle. He's not. He's not trying to get you to nail down the date. And there's people that need to repent, and we need to stop listening to them. I know that this is going to offend some people. I don't want to offend, but people are getting offended that the Lord is delaying. This May 14th thing, it's a good thing that happened because it was the most concrete example of date sample setting that I've seen since Harold Camping, where everybody was on the bandwagon. And it really opens up the mouth of the scoffers. It puts a shame on the whole thing. And people discouraged. And I remember telling people the Lord is coming, and them saying, Christians saying, well, people have been saying that for years. They I'm tired of it. Well, where'd they get that offended attitude? It's not right to have the attitude, but why do they have it? Well, it's because they've endured seasons of this. Makes people cynical. Makes me cynical. And I don't want to be cynical. I want to be waiting. I want to be ready when he comes. And here's the thing. Like I said in that parable, the Lord said people are going to get offended, and they're going to start beating each other, and you just say, forget it, the Lord's delaying his coming. And this one's a big one. People are going to be offended. You need to repent of your offense, but you also need to repent of opening the door to the date setter. And then the date setters need to repent. You need to search your heart. If you have a YouTube channel and you've got thousands of people on your YouTube channel, or even hundreds, and you've been setting up their expectation that things are going to happen on a certain day, and even on that day you keep saying, no, it's today, it's today, it's today. But if it's not, then you just go back to your date setting and say, well, maybe it's Pentecost. No, you got to stop this madness. You're damaging people's hearts. And if you think, oh, well, I've got a good intention and I'm really watching for the Lord, you're wrong. You're wrong. You are not watching for the Lord. You're watching for a day. We're not to watch for a day. We're to watch for the Lord. And you're not to teach people to look at a date. You're to teach them to abide in the Lord. Because in all practicality, the real abiding in His presence should make it so that when we stand in His actual presence, there's almost no difference. I think that's what He would like to see. I think He'd like us to step into eternity fully prepared, and here we go. That maybe that's idealistic, but that's what abiding in the Lord should produce. Watchman Nee was taught by Emmy Barber, and they were talking about the coming of the Lord. She was a real simple lady who really knew the Lord, and she said he was all into the prophecies. This is when he was young in his Christian life, and she said, no, it's not. The real watching for the Lord is we could turn the corner and there He is. Do you think He's going to come today? Well, no, this hasn't happened and this hasn't happened. No, we could turn the corner and this could be it. You have to live in that kind of expectation, that kind of sense of imminency. You're no longer looking at outward signs as anything other than a confirmation for what you know in your spirit. And now you're turning your focus to abide in Him. And what does it mean to abide in Him? 1 John tells us, if that which you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you shall continue in the Father and in the Son. That's why the real fight is the fight to clear the air for the gospel of grace, so that people are confident at His coming and not shrinking back in fear, and people are not offended because their focus has been turned to calendars and calculators rather than the Lord Himself.